Hey guys, and welcome to Mangotology. If you're new here, thank you for joining me. My name is Steven Mango, and I'm an ex-Scientologist that works here on YouTube to expose Scientology. So if you haven't done so already, please make sure to go down below, click on that subscribe button, as well as the bell icon right next to it so you get notified whenever I release a new video about Scientology. So today, I wanted to take you inside the mind of an ex-Scientologist. I wanted to take you guys from the very first early days of leaving Scientology and bring you inside the mind of what actually goes on in your recovery period, if you will, as the days and weeks go on and as you get more into the real world, what that's like to get adjusted and the different problems and things you face from being involved in Scientology in the first place. So I want to take you to pretty much the first week or two of leaving Scientology more officially. Now, this is, I think, the time in my mind that had the most fear, the most worry, and the most panic. These are when the most sleepless nights kind of happen, because even though you're out, you're only out physically. You're not really out mentally at that period. So when you're out of the church's grip, I know that there are people who feel like a lot of freedom and they feel relief, but I think that, yes, there's that level of like, okay, like I'm done, I'm out. But on the other hand, you're really feeling the panic and fear set in because your phone is ringing off the hook. This is what you believe in, guys. For me, it was only a couple of years. For other people, it's been their whole entire life, all of their existence. So you have to realize, at least for me, I left in the beginning quietly. I didn't make a big stink. I didn't like turn on my camera and go on YouTube right away. There was a period for several months where I had to kind of decompress because I would never imagine that this is what I would be doing. Even like all these years later, I would have never, I'm telling you guys, I'm looking at you in the eye, would never have thought I would have spoken out against Scientology when I left. Even though we all know about all the different things that have happened to me when I was inside the church, I would have never thought about speaking out against them because in my mind, I was thinking, you know, it's just maybe like, you know, some flaws or some kinks that they're working out, or it happened to me, but they're doing so much good in this world. You still, no matter, and it might be the Stockholm Syndrome, it might be something that actually goes on, but you go through this point where you think the technology is great in Scientology, but it's maybe Scientology's leadership, like David Miscavige and the different upper management in Scientology that's responsible for a lot of horrible things that happen in Scientology. A lot of people leave, they don't blame Hubbard, they're blaming Scientology's management. So you think like, hey, like maybe I'll come out of the church, maybe I'll meet some other Scientologists who have left, who want to practice Scientology in a safer environment and aren't abiding by the rules of Scientology. So I know that that happens to a lot of different people. And you know what? You may not think that that's the right step, but it could be a very good first stepping stone out into the real world. People expect, especially on the internet, people expect that you're going to go from like full-fledged Scientology where you're on the IAS poster in the wall. Then 5 or 6 days later, I'm supposed to somehow be like with the picket sign outside of Scientology's doorstep. And I'm telling you, it doesn't happen that quickly. There's like a decompression period, and even after I decided to leave, I knew that I could maybe get drawn back into Scientology. So that's when I changed my phone number and changed, you know, all of my contact information essentially, because I knew that they were going to start calling me rapidly. And that didn't even happen like immediately. Like it wasn't like I left on say Monday and then Wednesday I have a new phone number. It didn't even happen that quickly. So I would have people show up to my apartment at the time wondering where I was, why I wasn't going on course. Like here I am supposed to be this ethical, responsible Scientologist that's representing Scientology because I'm on these posters and, you know, being a face of Scientology. So why am I not at the org? And they were kind of in a panic about it, honestly, because, you know, I was even getting text messages, and I still don't know to this day if they were asking people I knew to text me or not. I mean, maybe, possibly, they're like, hey, something's going on with Mango, like, figure it out, because he's representing us right now, and he's nowhere to be seen at the org. Because you think, if I'm right outside the examiner's office at CC, you're going to the examiner after a session, after you complete a course, or for whatever purpose that you're going for that particular day. There's different reasons why you would see an examiner. They can get into more Scientology org dynamics if you guys are interested in that. You go see the examiner. My poster was right outside the examiner's office. They told me, which I'm sure they tell everyone, the reason they put me there in that specific spot is that when people... it sounds so silly. When people are waiting in line to like go into the examiner's office, they're going to see me on that poster, and there's so much freedom. It sounds so stupid. There's so, like, now that I think of it, at the time I thought like, oh wow, this sounds so cool. But I radiate so much theta that I did such an amazing thing for mankind that seeing me on this poster is going to make everyone's needles float when they see the examiner. Because if your needle doesn't float, like after a session, you know, there could be a red tag, there's different trouble that the auditors can get into. The pre-clear has to go back into session, which means more money, correction. So they told me the reason they put me there is because like basically like I was so powerful as a being that when Kirstie Alley, for example, is going to sit down in the examiner's chair, she would look up and be like, wow, look at that mango kid on that poster. Like, this is so amazing. And then she'd go in session and feel so happy that her needle would float. Again, they were probably just telling me that, I mean, obviously, but, you know, they would use these like mental manipulation games. So I was starting to get a lot of texts from people like, hey, just saw you outside of the examiner's office on the poster, or, you know, it's so wonderful and amazing, like, where have you been? Like, let's catch up, let's get lunch, let's do something. Do you want to meet at CC, meaning Celebrity Center? So for me, especially, I feel like right when I was leaving was when I was promoting Scientology, because I was either going to go in one direction or the other. I've told you guys this. I'm not going to get into my whole full story, but basically I was going to get more invested into Scientology or less invested, and then I started waking up once I met my now husband Jeff and started to realize the anti-gay stance in Scientology and starting to learn more that this isn't just like happening to me being ripped off in Scientology. This is a program they put everyone through. So I was in a lot of fear and panic and anxiety because they were very heavily trying to get me to come back into the org given my status at that time in the church. And it was just that sort of time where I knew that I could have been easily persuaded to go back, so I was lucky that I had people in the outside world that weren't trying to bring me back in. Yes, once I actually made my video, which we're going to get to, that's when I got declared, and that's when I got completely cut out, and that's a whole nother mental game that we're going to be getting into that you play with yourself. But if, like, say my mom or my dad were in Scientology, I could have easily been persuaded by them to come back in because that would be my whole life, right? And that doesn't mean that second generation Scientologists don't leave. They do every single day. But for the position that I was in, I was lucky that I met someone like Jeff. I had friends who were like actors and people who I would, you know, work with, or people that I'd see on set, whatever, and I'd be able to kind of, I was already kind of in the outside world more so than, say, someone leaving the Sea Org or staff, so it's a little bit easier for me to kind of like ground myself back in the outside world, if that makes any sense. But with the amount of time that I'd be spending on course every single day, a lot of the times it honestly felt like I had my own apartment, but I was basically a full-time Scientologist. Yes, I went home to sleep, I bought my own groceries, I had my own car. Basically, I had some stuff on the outside world, but I basically felt like I was a Scientologist from the morning time till the time I went to bed. I was doing Scientology at near the end part of my time, more or less, more so than the beginning. I was there sun up to sundown, essentially. And sometimes it would only be like a 4 or 5 hour turnaround that I would go back home, take a shower, and then go back to the org to continue on whatever services I was doing at the time. So you have to remember too, when you're in that level of control and that like go, you have to do this course, you have to go in session, you have to go here and you have to go here, and we're going to have a fundraiser. And when you're in that sort of level of Scientology's bubble that they create, when you leave and then you're in your own world, is kind of like too quiet and it feels really weird. So you're almost like, what am I doing with myself? Like, I was here saving the world on Monday and now it's Thursday afternoon and I'm just sitting here like afraid to leave my front door because Scientology might be sitting outside to follow me to the grocery store or to see where I'm going or see who I'm having over as guests or trying to listen to me when I'm on the phone. And, you know, there was actually one point that actually did happen. I was talking to my friend Jonathan, who was the best man at my wedding, and I lived in an apartment, but it was kind of like a townhome, and you can drive into the building or the complex I used to live in very easily. You can basically walk right up to my front doorstep with very little security. As bad as that sounds, I don't live there anymore, I can say that. So I opened up my windows and I was talking to my friend Jonathan on the phone. And this was like right when I was leaving, and I was on the phone telling him about Scientology, because I introduced him to Scientology actually. And he didn't like really continue on with Scientology, but he knew not to say anything either way about Scientology because obviously he knew that I would disconnect from him. So I'd be on the phone with him talking to him about no longer being a part of Scientology, and I'm getting a knock on the door, right? And I'm hearing someone say like he's home, like we can hear him, right? And then I'm like closing my windows because I know that there was someone on, there's like my front door, and then you could like walk around like the townhome that I lived in, and then there was like a backyard area. So I knew that there was someone over there, and there was like maybe 1 or 2 people at my front door. And I feel like at the time it was possibly my course supervisor and possibly my IAS registrar. And I knew that they were coming to try to talk to me at my home because they tried to make me feel more comfortable because I wasn't willing to go back in the org, because I did voice I had an ARC break, right? So they knew that I was upset, but they didn't know why necessarily, and it was more so than anything that they'd obviously be able to correct just by coming in my apartment and talking to me. But could you imagine, after only a couple days being out, you have people at your door, you're nervous, you don't really know who you can trust, who you can talk to. Like, yes, I had people in the outside world, but it was like this level of, I still probably at that point believed in the technology to some degree, but I didn't agree with everything else that was going on in Scientology. So there was just a lot of fear, a lot of panic, a lot of stress. And even though, yes, it was good to be out, there was still not like, you guys know, I still feel these type of feelings of like, what's my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing in life? Like, I'm not playing as big of a game as I used to play in Scientology. Now, knowing what I know now, would I want to go play that game anymore? No. But at the time, you have to realize, like, when you're in that mindset, it is the biggest letdown to be leaving Scientology, because you're thinking that's your spiritual eternity. So even if I was only in for a few years versus people who have been in for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, it's still a letdown when you think that's your spiritual freedom, that this is the one time in this lifetime that you're supposed to be going free by Scientology's processes. And you believe, especially when you've been out for a little while, you start waking up to it to see that that's not the only way to spiritual freedom, but you think that if Scientology turns their back on you, you're turning your back on Scientology, you're never going to achieve that freedom. And you're used to in Scientology only looking at Scientology as source. They're the only ones that have the technology, the only ones with the answers. It's an exact process. Only Scientology can deliver it. There is a standard technology. People on the outside don't have the answers, tools. Even people who used to be Scientologists, they can't deliver Scientology like Scientology can deliver Scientology. So they're the only group that can handle your spiritual freedom. So I so truly in my soul believed that I was going to achieve this level of spiritual immortality, that I could only get there. So of course you go through a period of like, it's a letdown, and you're scared because you don't know anything else at this point. My adult life was studying Scientology for so many hours a day, so leaving, it's like, well, what do I do now? What do I believe? And that's where I think a lot of people who've left Scientology sometimes can turn and almost do the opposite of what Scientology believes, which is also dangerous. Like, on either side of the coin, it's not good, where you see a lot of them start turning to drugs, alcohol, smoking weed. And yes, there may be some medicinal benefits to smoking marijuana. I'm not saying that as a Scientologist will say, like, marijuana is all bad. But if it's like a sun up to sundown thing that you're coping with, saying, using any type of substance, it doesn't matter if it's from a leaf, if it's from, whatever, if you're doing anything in excess, it's not good. Yes, if you need to do that for, people do it for chronic pain or for depression, anxiety, whatever, like, yeah, okay, like, it's probably better than doing like a harder substance. But, if you're doing it as like, Scientology told me not to do this horrible drug, now I'm going to do it as like an FU to them. It's like, that's also dangerous, because these people probably, and I can only speak for myself really, like, you need mental health therapy, especially leaving. And I know it's scary. I would not talk to a therapist like right after leaving, knowing that in my mind that, oh, if maybe one day if Scientology turned good, and I'm speaking, guys, in the vein of someone who just left, so keep that in mind, this isn't what I'm believing now, that if they turned good, then I don't want to have been under the influence of mental health therapy or psychiatry or any of that stuff, because then I'm not going to be eligible to go back into good standing. Never mind that they're anti-gay and all these different things, but this is before I spoke out anything. This is like fresh out of the mindset. I think that a lot of people think like, hey, I don't need to go to therapy, like, I'm out, I'm in the real world and that's enough. But it's like, no, like you go through so much, regardless if you're public, your staff, your Sea Org, like you need to talk to someone about what you went through because those effects linger. Even if you're not thinking about Scientology every single day, you were still put through it for however long you were in. So that's something that I feel like any ex-member even watching this now needs to know. Like you have to be able to handle all the different things and the different games, manipulation, the abuse. This isn't something to be like going at on your own. And only recently, as you guys have seen in my other videos, I've started trying to seek out therapy. I need to try to find another therapist because of reasons you guys can see in my last video, but at the time I wouldn't speak to a therapist. So then I went through a period of feeling kind of like liberated, like not thinking about Scientology. It's great. I told them to F off. I've changed my phone number. I'm in a relationship with someone. Everything is great. Happy, fine, and dandy. I don't think about Scientology. I'm happy to put it behind me, and it's an afterthought. And I think a lot of people go through that phase too. You're in this mind frame like, yes, I've been through a lot, but now I need to just focus on the present. That's what I would think. Like, I need to focus on the present. It's horrible what Scientology is doing to other people, what I've been through, but you know what? I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to speak out. Let me just carry on with my life. And if Scientology does Scientology, they're free to do so. And if other people want to join, that's their free will. But I'm out and I'm happy, so why am I going to make a stink? Why am I going to speak out about it? It's embarrassing to tell people you were a Scientologist or you know, you believed in those sort of things. No one is going to understand why I believed in Scientology because people don't really know what it is. So, you know, if I tell people I used to be involved, they're going to think I'm weird, I'm a cult member. That it's just not a good look to say that, and especially being in the entertainment industry, you don't want people to think that you were involved in Scientology, and they have a reputation. And if I speak out, then people are going to know that I was one, so let's just not say anything. And that's what a lot of people do. I have friends and other people who are really nice, course supervisors, or other people that I genuinely like. So why am I going to go and let them not be able to believe or practice what they believe in by me revealing things that happened? Because regardless, if bad things happen to me, other people might be having wins and benefits and gains and, you know, again, this is what I used to think. Why am I going to say anything about it? Because they have the right to believe and do that. And maybe they're going to have a better experience, or they have a better auditor or better org that they're a part of. And that's their business that they want to practice it. Why am I going to interfere? Because if I speak to the media, whatever, I'm going to get declared. If I make a YouTube video, I'm going to get declared. If I, you know, do anything, then I'm going to lose business clients that I've had with my old company Talent Mailing. So again, I don't want to say anything because I want to still be able to talk to the people that I knew, because at this point I only knew Scientologists, guys. I knew people obviously in the outside world, but in terms of people I knew in LA, like I kind of established a world for myself that encompassed a lot of Scientologists. Now, I remember one time I was actually on set. I don't know if I've ever told this story, actually. I was on set for some television show. I don't really remember which one it was. If I'm not mistaken, it was the TV show Drunk History. I was playing some sort of, I don't remember what. I was like a featured background role, essentially. So again, it was nothing really relevant or important to even bring it up. But anyways, I was playing some sort of character. This was probably a little bit later in the story of the mindset of an ex-Scientologist, but bear with me. I saw him reading a Scientology textbook. I don't remember which one, but I could clearly see, and he was sitting at another table. And for some reason, I don't know what compelled me, but I felt at this point probably a little bit more liberated leaving, and I don't believe I was declared at this point, but I still felt like I wanted to inform others what happened to me. I think that was more my mindset at the time. I go and I sit next to this guy, and I think because I still believed in a lot of Scientology principles and stuff, like I read whatever he was reading, for example, whatever the book was, L. Ron Hubbard book. So I'm like, oh, let's just pretend it was Science of Survival. Oh, Billy Bob, hi, nice to meet you, I'm Steve. Oh, I've read Science and Survival, really great book, huh? But I was getting to the point of trying to say about what happened to me. Oh, yeah, like, are you a Scientologist? I was, but I left. I don't know why I felt so confident to talk to someone about what I went through at this point, because I was still so fragile and broken about it. And he told me, I think he was at the Los Feliz mission, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe he was at Celebrity Center or Big Blue. Big differences between all of those orgs, but he was at some LA org. probably Celebrity Center because he was an actor on set. And I was talking to him about, like, hey, you know what? It's kind of crazy because I wanted someone to talk to who might have understood. Because I seen with the Scientology book, of course he's on Scientology's side if he's reading it on set publicly. But maybe if I kind of shared that, like, I'm not against the philosophy of Scientology at this point. I'm not opposed, but look at what I've been through. Because I haven't met like any like ex-Scientologists too. That was later when I started meeting ex-Scientologists. Like I was still trying to like reason and rationalize what I've been through. So I was telling him about fundraising, the money stuff. I was telling him about different Sea Org abuses that I was witnessing, about different Sea Org recruitment cycles. Like I started like telling him in a certain way, and basically he started going off on all these tangents about how L. Ron Hubbard was Buddha and how, you know, amazing a person L. Ron Hubbard is. It's basically my fault that I went to Celebrity Center. You went to like one of the, you know, diehard Sea Org orgs, and basically he had a friend who he took out of CC and put at another org because of how like intense Celebrity Center is, because they're a Sea Org and they're a little bit more like Scientology is all or nothing versus some of the other orgs, which might be like considered like a class 5 org or whatever, would be more easygoing, a little bit more relaxed. They're not going to be as intense with Scientology as some of the other orgs would be. So he's like, yeah, you know, like you could go to like Los Feliz mission, and that's where a lot of like cool, artsy, even sometimes gay Scientologists would say go to Los Feliz mission. And, you know, basically he said I pulled it in to be in like those Sea Org recruitment cycles. I pulled them in because I put it out there spiritually into the universe, or I postulated something, or something must have gone on. I don't know how he reasoned it specifically, but basically I pulled it in. Like I almost was like, I am supposed to be a Sea Org member, or I am so capable as a being whatever that I'm gonna pull in the Sea Org recruiter into my universe because I'm somehow spiritually or emotionally connected or tied to the Sea Org. Maybe I'm coming back from a past life from the 50s, 60s, or 70s, or 80s before I was born, and I was maybe on the ship with Hubbard, which a Scientologist told me that before when I was in session. Like, you actually were a Scientologist in a past life. That's why for so many years you didn't want to leave Scientology, because you used to be in the Sea Org, where any normal person would have came in after 2 days would have been like, screw this. I had a connection, so they say, a spiritual connection, because I was a Scientologist in the past life. So now I'm basically returning back to the org, and I'm returning back to the Sea Org. So that's why I would pull in the Sea Org recruiters. And it's like, okay, what about the money stuff? I'm broke, I'm bankrupted, all this stuff at this point in time. And he's like, well, you pulled in those recruiters. You pulled in all these different things. Basically, it's all my fault. And I was trying to tell him that, like, why is it my fault that the org is, you know, asking me for tens of thousands of dollars? Like, it's clearly something wrong with Scientology's management and with the system as a whole to be, you know, engaged in this sort of fundraising that goes above and beyond when it's actually committing fraud and a lot of other stuff, as you guys have heard in my other videos. So as you can see, the conversation didn't really go as how I planned, but I was starting to, or what I'm trying to convey to you guys, I was starting to feel a little bit more comfortable in getting out of my shell to speak about what I've gone through, because I kept it in for so long and I was being told that it was normal. Because there was another time where I talked to my friend Buffy, who I told you guys about her before. She was the one who I was going to invite to my wedding, who said to me, well, being gay, and I told her about the gay stance in Scientology. This is after I left, and she's like, oh, well, it was just a small little mention, right? So again, with Buffy, I felt comfortable with her, and I told her about a lot of the different horrible things that I started to experience. This was before that moment, when I was still in Scientology. Just worth sharing to you guys. And she told me, and she was like, well, that is totally messed up, effed up, beyond belief. Like, this should not have happened to you. That's not right. Did you write a report on it? I'm like, Buffy, I could write a report on it, but this is like Scientology as we all know it. Like, this isn't something like I'm going to write a report and I'm going to report one recruiter. Say it was a Sea Org recruitment cycle. Yes, I could report that recruiter, but what is Scientology going to say? They're going to say recruiting people into the Sea Org is like the greatest thing that, like, it's what they're supposed to be doing is recruiting people into the Sea Org. Like, at any cost whatsoever is to get people to join our mission and our purpose and join staff for the Sea Org and further continue Scientology. So if I report a Sea Org recruiter and say, oh, they were mean to me and they called me a pussy or something like that, whatever, it's like, okay, but sorry they said that to you, Mango, but we are trying to recruit people in our org, and this is, like, they would almost get mad probably back at me and be like, hey, like, they shouldn't have done that, but being in Scientology, this is the most important mission that we're on, and we have to almost show you the intensity of what the importance of this is and the game that we're playing. So if you have to knock a little sense into, we have to do it because there's other people in the world who are not Scientologists, and they're not going to obviously join the Sea Org or have any interest in Scientology. But we need people like you who are already on our team to help further our mission. And there's a lot to that sort of stuff, guys. I mean, you guys know I ramble a lot. I'm going to try to do videos maybe with Jeff trying to do like different role-playing scenarios so you guys see like what it's really like inside a recruitment session, inside a regging cycle to get money out of you, just so you guys really see how intense. This is not just like any used car salesman. It goes above and beyond to degrees that are imaginable to a lot of different people who don't know already what Scientology tactics are. So I started feeling a little bit more brave to start speaking out against Scientology, but I wasn't 100% at the place where I was comfortable sharing it publicly. And this is a point, obviously, I was with Jeff, and Jeff was starting to talk to me about different things about Scientology. Again, he doesn't know at this point as much as he knows now, obviously hearing my stories ad nauseum, but he, of course, knew because he had some affiliations to different people who might have been in Scientology for a short period of time, or just being in LA, or just hearing rumors and stuff, to start kind of talking to me about Scientology. But he couldn't talk to me like Scientologist to Scientologist or ex-Scientologist to ex-Scientologist because he didn't really understand everything that goes on. So he contacted a former Scientologist who you guys know from YouTube, and this person came over our house, and Jeff cooked dinner for this person and their spouse, and this person's like, let's film a video, let's tell your story, making phone calls like, oh my god, I'm at the house of this kid, he just left CC, he was on IAS posters, like he's been going up the bridge and working on course, and he's gay, and you know, it was like, whoa, like calm down, like I'm out, but I'm still not comfortable being public. This is before Leah Remini's show, this is before Going Clear, this is before all of that, so you guys can imagine this isn't like it is today if someone leaves and it's like so warmly accepted to speak out against Scientology. So this person was telling me to speak out, and I'm like, no, I don't know if I'm going to do it. And I thought in my mind, like, if I speak out, I want to be able to control how I tell my story. I don't want someone else editing it. I don't want someone else putting it on their channel. Nothing about this person, obviously in a bad way, but I want to be able to tell my story and sit and film and cut it up how I want, or take out certain parts. I don't want someone else to have the liberty. Like, what if I'm too scared to release it? I kind of needed like the baby steps into it, and I didn't, again, speak out for another 3 months. So I started meeting and talking to this person, as well as some other ex-Scientologists and stuff like that. And I eventually said, you know what, I want to film my story, but I want to be able to do it where it's cathartic for me, where I might film it and not even release it, but I'm going to tell my story. So again, I can take you guys behind the scenes of my very first video on another video, but this is more inside the mind of a Scientologist. I spent probably weeks putting together like 100 pages of notes on what I wanted to talk about. As we know, the video was 2.5 hours long. I sat there for, I think it was just one day that I filmed that. I don't think the guy came back a second day because I hired a videographer to come over and everything with his equipment, everything. He was going to edit it for me. And I'll tell you guys, it's actually probably an interesting story about my first video, so I'll post that another day. But I just remember after I filmed it, like, wow, like this is, you know, more than I've told anyone, like any friend, family member, Jeff, like I've never spoken to this degree about Scientology. And I was giving my editor, not going to say his name, he didn't want me to share his name, that's why I say that. Again, because even so, like, you're working with an ex-Scientologist, but they're like, no, like, I'm afraid of Scientology. I'm like, I'm the one who was in Scientology. Like, if anything, it's like, why are you afraid? Like, you have nothing to be fearful of. You're the one who came to my house, and I'm hiring and paying you to make a video for me. But anyways, I had my screening in Hollywood. I had Ex-Scientologist coming, like when I actually planned to release the video, Tony Ortega added me on Facebook, and it was like kind of like nerve-wracking because knowing like I'm putting this out there into the world and no one knew what the video was. I might have released like a 2 or 3 minute trailer, but I didn't actually release the full video. I still probably could have backed out at this point, but then again, you know, Tony Ortega started posting that I was doing it, and other ex-Scientologists, so I was kind of like all in at this point when I decided I was going to release it and put it on YouTube. I was doing it as a screening. This is the thing. I was doing it as a screening where I was showing people and ex-Scientologists my story. I didn't think it was going to lead to like being like a YouTuber. Like I thought like, oh, I'm going to release this video at the Acme Theater in Hollywood, release it as like a showing premiere, and then for people who can't see it, the ex-Scientologists and other people who are anticipating this video, now former friends, and other people, they would be able to see my video and learn about what's going on at the Celebrity Center. I did it more so for that, not like I'm gonna put it out there and I'm gonna have this big video and start a channel and all of that. Like at that point, no, just like, oh, for the couple people who couldn't attend the screening, for like the 100 or 200 people that, you know, are at home, you know, reading some Ex-Scientology blog, they can access my video. Almost 2 million views later, it turned into something much bigger, and instantly overnight I got declared. Like hundreds, I'm telling you, like 600 people like instantly defriending me on social media. People obviously saw my declare, like my phone numbers was blocked from people, like complete clients I had through my business, like everyone overnight shut me out. I knew that was happening, and I feel like people need to be in the right place to be able to speak up publicly like I did, or be prepared to know like the repercussions of what's going to come. And I knew it was coming. I mean, it wasn't like a big shock, but it was more like, wow, like it happened to me. Like I knew it was going to be the case that I was going to get declared, but it was really like, wow, like they didn't think, like in my mind, like to see or like to contact me, like to see like what my upsets were or something, or they still liked me. Like, I don't know, like I was going through these different things because I felt so validated by them while I was there in the beginning. Like when they're like, when they love bomb you, you're so amazing, so special, so talented. It's like, how do they turn their back on me? But then again, like I was like really public making my video, obviously, like I had a lot to expose, and I was never going back. I made my mind up, obviously. But even at that point, it was only a couple months after I left, I was still kind of working out these different feelings and problems. And I know a lot of people who get declared and then they go like crazy from it because it's such a big betrayal. Whether you speak out as publicly as I did, or whether you're, you know, just made a blog post, or you made a Facebook status, or you just left and never came back and they declare you, it's like a big betrayal. So you really do get depressed and anxious and worried, and you're like, well, again, I lost my spiritual freedom. I have no friends. I have no one that I know in LA that's not a Scientologist probably at this point. So like, what do I do with myself? I don't have this mission. I don't have this purpose. So you go through this period where you're like really angry. You're really angry, but you're also really depressed. And then you're like trying to figure out like, what do I do with my life? And I think that's why some people sometimes flip-flop or go back in to Scientology, because it's like, well, what do I do with myself? Like I devoted myself to this group, like now what? So you get like really kind of depressed and anxious and very angry. I went through a period like maybe 2 or 3 years after I left, where I was like very angry. I was protesting a lot, and I was at their front doorsteps, and it's like I almost wanted answers, but I also want change. Like you start hearing from people writing to you about the abuses and stuff, and then you get really angry, and you start being like, why are they still doing this to people? And that's why I think, kind of what I was saying earlier, I didn't want to speak out. I want to be quiet because I didn't want Scientology to declare me or whatever, but it's almost like you have a responsibility to help other people. At least for me, like I don't want people to have done what happened to me. So like I felt like I need to start making more videos and going on the news or being in other documentaries, doing things, because it's almost like you get so angry and mad, like, wow, like everything was a lie. And you know, you start seeing recruiters when you live in LA, like trying to recruit other people in. You get so angry that, you know, I'd be shouting out the window, don't join, like they're a cult, like listen to me, like I used to be in. And, you know, it's like you almost try to save the world. And then you get very drained and very exhausted from it as well, because you have to realize like you may not be able to save every single person. Like it can't be one person's responsibility. Like, it can't be my responsibility. I can educate people. I can have my channel and do as much as I can, but I need to be able to shut it off in my mind sometimes too, because it's too big of a project for, like, say, one person with the camera to go and take down this worldwide group. I would hope that my videos have an impact, but I have to be able to protect myself emotionally and mentally too, that there's only so much that I can do. But I was going through a period as an ex-Scientologist where I was so angry that they were still operating. Maybe it was me being naive to think my video was going to change the whole tax-exempt status of Scientology and shut their doors down. But I'm like, wow, like, even though my video was so viral, why are they still doing what they're doing? And I'm still getting reports from people on the inside that Scientology is still operating in the same manner. So it was getting very frustrating to me that there was nothing that I could do besides what I was already doing, and it didn't seem to be enough, so I was getting very angry. Then I started going through a period, like, I went to like a Buddhist center, I went to like a couple, one that was a cult actually, a Kadampa Buddhism center, which people have been writing to me about them a lot recently. It's very interesting. I tried Dawn Yoga, also a cult, because I was looking for like that group, like that same, like, when you're in that level of control and then you're in the outside world and there's no control, in the sense of like, you don't have someone like texting you, like, you have to be here right now or we're gonna come get you, like that type of level of control. I was used to that for a while as an adult, of having that level of structure and control, that I almost wanted another cult to fill that void of not having that level of control. I could obviously recognize the signs of everything of what like a cult is and what they look like, and I can tell instantly now within a second if something is a toxic sort of group or relationship or any of that sort of stuff. But it was the sort of thing where I was in the outside world, and it's like, if I don't show up somewhere, like, I don't get a text or call about it, or if I don't show up to a job, like, they'll fire you and then you don't have to go back and they don't call you or text you ever again. It's not like Scientology where you're like, I'm leaving. They're like, no, stay. It's like other places are just like, okay, bye. Or, you know, you don't have to be anywhere. Like, I could go grocery shopping today or I don't go grocery shopping. But with Scientology, it was so much control and so much pressure. Like, you have to get the course done Thursday by 2, and you have to, you know, be on this like level of extreme pressure. So when you're just at this other period of the ex-Scientology experience, you're just kind of like sitting and you're like, okay, what do I do with my time? I've been out for a while. Maybe I don't believe like I need to be on course or get auditing every single day, but it's like, what do I do? So I was starting to go to other like religions and stuff, like a normal Buddhism center, and trying to find other things. I'm into Jeff's church, which is Episcopal, and other things. I'm like, nothing really feels right to me, like on a spiritual level. So I didn't really connect with anything. So then I just started feeling very lost spiritually and emotionally. And you guys know, like, I've been talking about a lot of my panic attacks and stress that I've had, but that's been more recent with a lot of the stress and panic attacks. But what I think a lot of ex-Scientologists experience too is that you leave and then you're still stuck with Scientology, in the sense of like the money aspect of it, if you were not like some rich Scientologist. So for me, I was someone who had all this debt, right? Don't have a job that can afford to pay for all of this debt that I had, but don't qualify for regular bankruptcy. And I'm stuck with all these bills. I'm stuck with having this declare on me, obviously, so I don't have the friends that I used to have. And it's just like, you just feel really alone and lost, and you don't know what to do or who to turn to. And eventually I started going to like some like more cult derived therapy sessions from a therapist that is recommended by another channel. I'm not going to say who, because it's not relevant, but I used to go to their cult recovery groups, and I talked about why I don't see this therapist anymore, because they don't accept insurance. They're very, very expensive. They weren't providing like bills to reimburse the insurance. They were taking like cash payments. Eventually I was able to pay with my like health savings card thing, but for a while they weren't. And even when I'm like, hey, it's been like 3 or 4 weeks, I need that bill to show the insurance so they can maybe try to reimburse me when I'm going to the sessions. Oh, I'm going on vacation now, or oh, I'm busy, whatever. So it was just weird. And the person believed everything was a cult. It was like anything. It was like, oh, if you have a friendship, that's maybe a one-on-one cult. This type of group, oh, that could be kind of a cult. Anything was almost seen as a cult. And I don't believe that everything that is kind of a assembled group is a cult, obviously. But again, like I've told you guys, there's a lot, especially in the cult or ex-cult world, there's a lot of black and white. It's a lot of it's all bad or all good, and there's never really like this middle ground that people explore, that I like to explore, like the middle ground world. And yes, that therapist and those groups did help for a little while, and eventually couldn't afford to go to the one-on-one therapy sessions any longer because it just couldn't be with, you know, my finances and with the insurance things that I think were going on there. So I went for a while without getting any help, any therapy, and I was really just trying to explore my purpose because I really wanted to be an auditor. And that was the hardest thing for me, was to try, in the outside world as an ex-Scientologist, was trying to align myself with other things that weren't Scientology, but that I had interests in, that I could have like a purpose and a place in this world that wasn't just about, you know, L. Ron Hubbard and that sort of stuff. So I was trying to be like, what's kind of equivalent to maybe being like an auditor in the outside world? And it's like, oh, I can't go to school for 7 years right now to be like a therapist if I was trying to help people with like emotional or mental health sort of stuff. So I was trying to like figure out my place, but nothing was like fulfilling me in the same way. And that was the hardest thing for me, was to try to find something that was meaningful but wasn't being in a cult. And I still have that problem, honestly. Like, I don't have something else that feeds me besides acting, which, you know, how hard it is to get acting jobs in the world. YouTube is what I love to do, and making videos and posting on here and whatever, but it's also very hard sometimes to come on camera and have a smiling face and make videos. Sometimes it's very hard to work for yourself and be posting about things that are very traumatic. But on the other hand, I'm helping people and being able to not let Scientology have that power and control over my life anymore, that I could speak out and I'm not scared. And I know that there's so many people that I used to be friends with, stuff that have left Scientology, and they're like, I won't ever speak out. It's like, I feel like I have a responsibility to help people. So I don't know, guys. I know this has been a very long video. It's just, when you're talking about the mind and the mental games of Scientology, it goes on even longer. I could sit here probably for 2 or 3 more hours talking about the ups and downs I felt as an ex-Scientologist. And I don't think it ever is something that won't be in my mind, in the sense of what I used to go through. I think I could live my life and be happy and being able to move on to a degree, but it's almost like you'll never forget about what you've been through. And I don't think you should have to forget it, but I just feel like there'll always be some type of part of me about what I've been through, and I just don't want it to have that control over my life. But I still want to be able to help people and talk about it and not have it have power over me in terms of like panic attacks or anxiety or that sort of stuff. And I don't know, I think that it would be so simple to sit here and say, oh, you leave Scientology and you get a normal job, you meet other friends and go on with your life and never mention it again. And I think anyone who says that they're an ex-Scientologist and has done that, no, that's very naive, or they're just in denial about that. There are plenty of ex-Scientologists, especially even on YouTube and stuff, that try to act like, okay, I left, screw Scientology, it's the worst thing ever, and I'm done with it all, I've put it all behind me and that's it. And it's like, obviously no, like no one's just at that place where they've fully moved on and have had it have no power or control over their mind or their thoughts, because it's all about mind games in Scientology. So anyways, guys, thank you for listening to this whole entire video. If you have listened to this whole entire video, just comment the keyword banana in the comments. I'm curious to see how many people actually commented, to see if you guys actually do watch all the way through these videos when I go off on a whole tangent like this. I did also want to say thank you to you guys who have written to me about my anxiety and some of the mental health stuff that I've been struggling with. I've gotten so many emails. I promise I'm going to get back to you guys. I've been just inundated with so many messages, and I've had a lot of anxiety recently as well. So when I feel up to it this week, I will sit down and I promise to respond to you guys who have written to me. Thank you so much for watching again. Please make sure to go down below, click on that subscribe button as well as the bell icon so you get notified whenever I release a new video. Leave a comment for me down below. Let me know your thoughts about today's video, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks so much for watching, guys.